Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We will be looking at the Barbarian class and its origin in Dungeons & Dragons.
Barbarians, those fierce and savage warriors from the uncivilized lands. Warriors based on their primal connection to nature, especially animals, by the way. Bears, wolves, and so forth. Raging and powerful like the winds and storms. And often quick to resolve many issues with the swing of an axe or a sword.
Man.
Never backing down for any challenge, even if it means death or worse. We'll take a quick look at some of their historical and mythological origins and how they have evolved since the first editions of Dungeons & Dragons. So, with that, I'm Eddie.
I'm Eugene, and welcome to
Middle-Aged Barbarians.
Here on Middle-Aged Barbarians, we like to cover a wide array of topics, from tips and tricks to how to run your games, class and monster analysis, media and adventure reviews, and news updates. So whether you're new to the RPG scene or a seasoned player, an up-and-coming aspiring DM, or a jaded veteran like us,
we invite you to stick around and watch this pair of guys be barbaric and tear your boredom to shreds.
Oh yeah. All right, Eddie. So I think we should start with a brief class description for the Barbarian. If I were to ask you, what are the first words or ideas that come to mind when you hear Barbarian, what would you say?
Well, in general, barbarians are clearly like a brute that is really good at dealing a lot of damage and kind of not much else. A lot of times their culture shock brings a lot of humor to the party because they don't understand, or at least players can choose to not understand social customs and work with that. And, well, a lot of connection to nature as well. Maybe civilization is too oppressive, too civilized, and they say, no, we just like to live a little bit in the mud or the forest and so forth. So that's basically, I guess, it. And mostly rage.
Rage, yeah. Now, I think it's very important, if we're talking about the Barbarian as a class in D&D, to look at the pop culture, the media inspirations.
Of course.
A great part of it is based on, well, I mean, my first thought goes straight to Conan the Destroyer. Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, which was written by Robert E. Howard all the way back in 1932. So
yes.
We're running up on Conan's 100th birthday.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but Conan the Barbarian is part of the Cthulhu Mythos.
I was not aware. How so?
Because Robert Howard was one of Lovecraft's best friends.
Oh.
When Howard died, actually, Lovecraft was really depressed. I mean, he usually was really depressed. But specifically when Howard died, he got really, really sad. But curiously, they never actually met. They were pen pals.
Okay.
So they were really close, but by letters. There are a ton of letters of them. And a lot of the settings, for instance, Dagon is mentioned in Conan novels.
Okay.
But
I've never actually sat and read one of the novels, but that's interesting. I like that.
Well, there's only one novel. They're mostly short tales. But yeah, and then I know. I'm sorry, not the novel, the short tales. But yeah, they mention like stuff from the Cthulhu Mythos. But since it's like a hyper distance past, the Hyborian age, it doesn't feel the same as in now.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
That's
pretty
cool.
interesting. Yeah.
Now, I do want to make a note. When I mention Conan, I am referring to the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan.
Of course, not the Momoa.
No, we can forget about that. That wasn't.
I saw it on Tubi, but for free, and it was. I wanted my money back.
You wanted your money back? I know the only thing that my wife was excited about was that one shot where he was showing his rear.
Oh well.
That was like the most exciting thing in the movie, I think.
I guess. And Ron Perlman was really good on it, but he's good in everything. So
yeah. I mean that's the first thing that comes to mind. And obviously Conan has been in comic books, he's been in short stories, video games. I mean, there was a really good like a survival sandbox game a little while back, like years ago, that was based on Conan.
Yeah,
which is pretty good.
Based on the books, on the short stories. Yeah.
And now obviously another thing that I have to mention would be Barbarian Brothers.
which, I mean, they're a huge inspiration to us.
Yeah, man, I remember seeing that when we were back in high school.
And doing the noise.
It was great, man. I used to love watching that.
Yeah.
And that was back in, it came out in 1987, so we weren't.
We saw it
kids.
like 10 years later, yeah.
And that was a movie that starred the brothers David and Peter Paul, which were real life twins, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is definitely a cult. And I mean, there's other films. Maybe some would be considered true to the Barbarian, because like, if I say Krull, would you relate Krull to the Barbarian genre?
I mean, I don't know if you know that, but technically Krull is an ancestor of Conan. But since it's so far away in time, like everybody's at the same technological level, so it doesn't really make sense as a barbarian per se. Because kind of barbarians are usually kind of nomads and so forth, and this is kind of and at like a more distant age from.
Well, I mean, there's Krull, there's Beastmaster, which I remember was a pretty cool
Beastmaster.
movie.
Beastmaster kind of fits the role, but it's kind of a new genre, which would be having beasts, which kind of makes him a sort of. I mean, in D&D terms,
He just has high animal handling skills.
or maybe he has a couple of levels in Ranger or Druid to
Maybe. And of course, if we mention Conan, we have to mention Red Sonja, because they
Yeah.
were best friends.
Yeah, Red Sonja. And in the movie, I mean, there was a character played by Arnold Schwarzenegger who was not called Conan, but it's Arnold. And
What's that Godzilla joke? Look, it's a big giant dragon that we can't say is Godzilla because of legal things. But
exactly, but it's
Conan.
It's Conan, yes, exactly.
But now, if we go into like a more historical dive, and this is where I will defer to your vast knowledge,
Sure.
what would you consider to be historical figures that would fit this stereotype?
Okay, well, basically, the historical basis of the D&D Barbarian would be the Nordic Berserkers. And, well, there are a couple of names of that. Berserker is kind of the most common name. I forgot the names of each culture, but each culture had a different version of that. It's this sort of warrior that entered into a frenzy and sometimes wouldn't even distinguish friend from foe and fought until the bitter end, or just enter into that maniacal rage to, I'm guessing, kind of pump up the adrenaline and go ham with that. But there are a few other templates from other cultures that could work. Mainly the thing with barbarians, at least the historical version of the Berserker, or those sort of rage fighters, would be having a feeling for an animal spirit coming into you and you fighting with that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I would even put the Eagle Warrior or the Jaguar Warrior from Mesoamerica as a version of the Berserker.
That's cool.
Of that.
I never actually thought about barbarians and
in that way, but it's kind of interesting because those were noblemen, so kind of you can have an interesting idea with that their rage, their way to channel the animal spirit gives them a different place in society.
Now, were there substances involved?
Oh yeah, of course they were. Of course they were.
Because that's not in D&D.
That's not in D&D. That's not part of the canon. But yeah, they use powerful hallucinogenics to enter into that state. Well, at least alcohol. But usually it involved hallucinogenics. Even the original assassins, in a way, were kind of they work with that because assassin. I don't know if you know, assassin comes from hashish, the drug. So yeah, the original assassins, they were killers, but they also entered into a sort of trance. But nowadays, being that they came out of sudden rather than in open fields, well, we have that idea of assassins as being sneaky, but they also have kind of a similar route, historically speaking. Which other warriors had that thing? I mean, and I also have to mention, because it's one of my favorite stories, Gilgamesh, which is kind of the first known story. Gilgamesh, in a way, he was a king, but he also had a powerful, mighty rage in the myth. And he used it to fight and to go into the underworld to get back his really close friend and to be with him because he was really good fighting. His really close friend. Oh, I mean, it's very interesting how things like that happen. In a way, even like the great Achilles could be seen as a sort of rage warrior as well. Although it's kind of not, it doesn't have the actual patina, the actual look, but you could see it there. I mean, he fought with the power of the gods. It was channeled into him to fight. So, I mean, that's kind of stretching it a little bit, but you can also see that it could be kind of painted. Like we said with the pre-Hispanic warriors, you could see that there.
Well, now when we look at the barbarian class in Dungeons and Dragons,
Oh, that's more your side.
maybe, and we go all the way back to first AD&D. The barbarian was just a subclass of the fighter. I'm pretty sure it came out in Unearthed Arcana. It wasn't like in the main book. Not like the bard that was in the back of the book. This wasn't even there. And they were described as people with extraordinary fighting abilities and the ability to survive in the wild. They had pretty high physical requirements. I think it was like 16 in strength, dexterity, constitution, more along those lines. And I thought it was interesting because they had a cap on wisdom. The barbarian could not have a wisdom higher than 16, which I mean, it's high in itself. They didn't use magic.
They weren't able to use magic.
No, and they usually shunned anything that was magic, like no magic weapons, armor, items, maybe some divine intervention every now and then. But
maybe some spells or a little bit of healing, maybe.
Yeah, and there was even like you call this a graph or a table in the original book that had like levels where they would naturally be able to bypass monster magical resistances.
Of course.
So instead of having a +1 weapon, I think they could bypass that at level 3. And then at level 6, it was a +2. Their attacks counted as like a +2, and so on. It would go on. They only spoke common. They didn't know how to read or write, and they probably didn't care. And they couldn't be lawful in alignment back then when it was important. Second edition, this was where actually I got into an exchange with one of the producers because I didn't realize this. He brought it to my attention that this is kind of like where the first glimpses of this berserker fighter that you were mentioning, this rage aspect, came into play. Again, this was just the kit for the fighter. And then later they came out with the complete barbarian handbook. And each one of those iterations, there was like a little glimpse. What I had remembered was that they had like more limitations on the equipment they could use, but they were stronger. They had more health. They even had an ability that they could watch their back. Like if they were alert and somebody was going to attack them from behind, there was a percentage that they would just totally bypass or avoid.
Surprised. They were
surprised. And then there was a kit with the fighter that was the Berserker kit that had like the first glimpse of what the rage as we know is now. And there was a barbarian kit, because then they made it a class, that I think it was called the Ravager. And then those were the ones. Third edition, and this is like where we have more
the actual
memories.
Barbarian as we know and love it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that's where I remember the Barbarian as a class, and it was all about rage. I don't know if you...
Yeah, of course, that was the point. Even the variants of the Barbarian used the rage as the ammunition for it to work.
Yeah, rage back in third edition, rage would give you bonuses to strength, constitution. I think you had a bonus on your wisdom saving throws or your will saving throws, whatever it was called back then. And it would only last a couple of rounds, contrasting now that it lasts a minute. And then the problem with that, though, was after the rage was done, either you stopped fighting or the battle was over, you would lose
those hit points.
Yeah, and then you could have a dying barbarian in the party
like
all
super
of a sudden.
Quickly. Yeah.
What else? There was a chance that your barbarian could lose his rage and become an ex-barbarian if, by some chance, he became lawful. So there was also restrictions there with their alignment. But that was pretty much, that's what I remember of the barbarian. I don't know if there's anything else.
Well, the Frenzied Berserker Prestige class, which kind of brought back the flavor from second edition. That the barbarian, because in history, or what is believed about the Berserkers, they wouldn't stop fighting even amongst their friends. So the Frenzied Berserker brought that a little bit back. They were even stronger, even more glass cannony. That's also something that happens with the
But they were like a liability to their own party?
Sometimes the party had to be able to manage their drawbacks because it was kind of difficult.
Now, we reach 4th edition. Yeah, I'm looking over. He doesn't like it. I don't care. In 4th edition, the barbarian was placed in the striker role.
Which is the equivalent of a glass cannon, right?
Yeah, they're like the DPS or the DPR.
The DPS, sorry, yeah, not
That's
the glass.
right. Yeah, they were. I'm going to describe them as primal powerhouses. But they didn't come around until the second player handbook. They weren't in the first one.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then they had like a Primal Powers DLC, I'm going to call it, the extra book and stuff. And I remember there were like two main subclasses. There was like the regular Barbarian, which was the Striker role, and then there was another one which was actually called the Berserker, which took on a Defender and a Striker hybrid. I remember 4th edition was all about,
those roles,
picking your roles like Striker, Leader, Controller, etc. And the Rage wasn't like the previous edition because you had powers. You had at-will powers, encounter powers, and daily powers. So usually you'd have to use a daily power that would activate the Rage and cause all these other secondary effects in your character, which I love when people complain, because I have a couple of friends that complain about it, that 4th edition didn't have any options. And you had 14 daily power choices for your Rage as a Barbarian. That's real estate, man.
Yeah, I mean, remembering 3rd, which is the one I'm a lot more familiar of options, you didn't have that many options for Rage. You have like 3 or 4 variants of and some of them were kind of not very well balanced and so forth.
And then we move on to 5th edition, 2014 edition, which it kind of like takes a couple steps back. It goes away from all these mechanics that were unsuccessfully introduced in 4th, and it goes back to 3rd, kind of like you get a bonus to saving or to skill checks with strength. You have damage resistant if it's like mundane, bludgeon, piercing, whatever. And I mean, I don't know. I find it a little lackluster.
Yeah, no, it's not as fanciful. And yeah, I'm guessing they're also kind of following the philosophy of 5th. You don't get as many drawbacks, and it's not as risky.
No. Yeah, you get a little bit of damage. Now there are variants. Like when we talk about the Barbarian, the way I'd like a Barbarian to be, I mean, I imagine like the whirling dervish, like this crazy frenzied mixture of steel and blood and screams and anger and just going into combat and not caring and taking everybody out.
Or getting taken out in the way.
Or just being dead and not even knowing it, but he's still fighting. And something with like my noob group, one of the guys is playing a Barbarian, and he took the Frenzy subclass. And I think it's the Frenzy subclass. Anyway, it's a subclass that has an ability, I think it's called Frenzy. And he hasn't used it more than once, because when you use it, you get a level of exhaustion. So it's like, if I do that twice a day, I can maybe, if I'm lucky, recover one level of exhaustion, and you're going to compile it, and it's going to become, unmanageable, at least in my opinion. I don't know, I may be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. How other ways, other than home brewing and maybe just throwing out the exhaustion rules altogether. But yeah. So, I mean, and the other thing I like about Barbarians is they give you an excuse to be uncouth and unruly.
Of course, that's a whole point of the fantasy.
And maybe when you got everybody in a very special diplomatic situation trying to calm everybody out, you just do something stupid.
Or kind of be funny like Borat. Like you're just like completely out of the water, and you say like things that are really, really inappropriate.
That would be fun.
I mean, hey, actually, Borat would be a barbarian in a way, maybe.
Yeah, just as much as the one from Freakazoid is.
Yeah. Oh, that one's amazing. Cave Guy. If you don't know him, he's one of the best characters ever. He's like this caveman, but he speaks with a British accent, and he's like all proper and prim. And then enters in rage.
Does he even have like a monocle?
Sometimes he takes out a monocle.
He uses a monocle. He'll drink his tea.
And stuff like that. And then he enters into a rage and he fights. It's hilarious.
I always thought that was kind of a riff on Hulk when Hulk gets smart.
Yeah, probably like the leader and so forth. Yeah. Hulk will be also a kind of a archetype of barbarian, but he's constantly on strength. So that.
Anyway, you like what do you like, or how would you play a barbarian?
Well, how have I played it like that? Like the more on the funny side, but also like being that they're like a very high damage dealing. Well, you also apply for that. Another thing that I like about the barbarian is that it lends itself to be kind of the outsider. The barbarian is inherently, because it lives in a society, it has to live in a society that's different from his. It has to be the outsider. So in a way that helps him either climb to the top or end in the gutter. But you have that opportunity to critique things that are you as a player might find weird about living in a civilized world. Even Conan said it. How was that phrased? I mean, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact quote, but it's kind of like the reason that civilized people are unpolite is that they don't face the consequence of getting an axe in the face if they're rude to some people.
Well, remember what are the three pleasures? The three pleasures for a barbarian. You remember?
Crush your enemies.
Yeah.
Hear the lamentations of their women and children.
And see them driven before you.
I forgot that.
Yeah, man. That's all you need. It's just that simple.
Yeah, that's simple. And that's a fantasy. To vanquish your enemies.
All right.
So, that's the end of the video. If you haven't already, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And please feel free to leave your comments, suggestions, and questions below.
Yeah. Also follow us on our other social media like Instagram and TikTok. And you can come chat with us over on the Middle Age Barbarians channel at Discord at the ND Hobby server. Links in the description below.
And as always, remember to rage responsibly. We'll see you in the next episode.
Roll the dice!